Hey everybody, Tim Norris.
And Carmen Norris.
And welcome to another video of games you might not be playing,
but you should.
Today we're going to talk about Glass Road by Z-Man Games.
In Glass Road, you play a feudal lord who is burning down his forests in order to make green glass.
Where going green takes on a whole new meaning.
Glass Road leads you into the Bavarian forest of the 18th century. With 2 production wheels at your disposal, you will be tasked with the production of glass and bricks, as well as managing other resources. You will need to develop your very own landscape and build upon it a variety of buildings that will grant you many benefits. At the heart of the game is your set of 15 specialists, of which you will only use 5 during each of the game's building periods. In this game about glass making, flexibility will be your best asset to seize victory. Well, you would think the components are pretty much standard for a Euro-style game, but a couple of things I appreciate. And one is that the resources have stickers on them. You don't have to keep track of them just by the color that they are, like in a lot of games. And another is that the little tiles, they have surprises, like whirlpools or sharks in the ponds. We really got a kick out of that. The publisher really didn't have to do that, but we appreciate it. In order to set up the game, each player is going to need 15 cards, a player board, and your production wheel. Now on the player board, you can see that each section is marked with the tile that goes on it. We have sand pits, groves, and ponds, along with your forest tiles. And your production wheel, you're going to put your resources on. Here we have a brick, coal, clay, and food. The arrow is going to go in between the brick and the coal as it matches the brick color. And here you can see the green arrow matches the green glass.
Now, depending on the number of players determines which side of the building board you're going to use. This side is for 1 to 3 players, and this side is for 4 players. This game, we're going to show you how you play with 3 players, so we'll leave it on this side of the board. Next, you're going to take 4 production buildings and lay them out, and you can match them by the blue to blue so you know where to put them. Then, you have your immediate buildings that you'll lay 4 of them out as well. Last but not least, you have your bonus buildings that you'll lay your 4 out as well. Now that you got the building board set up, you'll take the first player marker, give it to the first player, and game can start. Now, depending on the number of players determines how many rounds or seasons there will be in each game. In a 3-player game, what we're going to demonstrate, there are a total of 4 seasons, and there are 3 rounds per season. And the way that these work is that at the beginning of the season, each player is going to select 5 cards out of the 15 specialist cards that they have, and that will create their season deck. And the way that these cards work is that they will give you either resources or they're going to allow you to build buildings to be able to be placed onto your player board to hopefully be able to help you throughout the game. And the way that this works is that at the beginning of round 1, you're going to select one of your specialist cards and put him face down. And then each one of the other players will place a card face down as well in front of them. Then, starting with the first player, you're going to reveal your card. Now, each player is then going to check their hand of their 4 cards remaining that they have left to see if they match that card. Well, we see here that this player does not. However, let's check out and see what the purple player does. Yes, he did match. Now, because the purple player matched, he has to play that card out of his hand. And what this does is it affects the first player and this player because now both of them then have to be able to try to only utilize either the top or the bottom of their card instead of the entire card. And for more of a definitive illustration of this, you should check out our live play because we go into much more detail than this. However, once both these cards have been played, this player would have to place his card over here to the side where he has 2 slots, which means that he can only do this 2 times, which means he only matches another player's cards 2 times. Because you do, no matter what, get to play 3 cards out of your hand. However, the player that played this card out of his hand would, after he performs whatever actions are listed on this card, would then discard the card, and then it would go over to the next player to reveal his card to see if he matches anybody else. And if he doesn't, he gets to perform the top and bottom portion of his card, but if he does, once again, then people would have to play him out of their hand, and then you could only play either the top or the bottom. The cards in this game is really what Glass Road is all about. Yeah, you got the resources, you have the buildings, but playing the cards at the right time is really the key to winning in this game. Because what you want to do is you want to select the specialists that you think are going to match your opponents. So that way, hopefully, you get a free turn. Because what you will be able to do is play 3 cards out of your hand. You're guaranteed that. But you don't want to match your opponent with the cards you play out of your hand because you're only going to be able to utilize the top or the bottom of the card. But what you want to do is have your opponent play a card that matches a card in your hand. Because then, number one, it gives you that extra card you're going to be able to play that maybe you wouldn't have been able to anyways. But it also handicaps your opponents because now they played a card that they really needed something good to happen with, but they're only going to be able to play either the top or the bottom.
Cultivating your land is very powerful in gathering resources due to these cards. As you see, the pit worker allows you to get sand or clay per pit. And if you get to play the top and the bottom, first you get to put a pit on your board. And then you get to gather your sand or your clay, and in this case I would get 3. The forest manager allows you to put a grove on your board. And then you can gather food or wood. The pond builder allows you to put a pond, but I don't have room. What am I going to do about that? Well, you have to play a card in order to take off one of these forests. So maybe in this case I'll decide, well, I'd rather have a pond than a grove. So I can take a grove off, place a pond on, and then I can get 1 sand or 1 water per pond. Glass Road is all about deforestation and cultivating your land. My land is already fully cultivated, so I'm going to have to take off one of these forest tiles in order to add more. In order to do that, I'm going to play one of these cards. The Slash and Burn Farmer, the Woodcutter, or the Carpenter.
So let's talk about the resource wheel because this is a very important aspect of the game and it took a while for us to wrap our heads around this. The way that the resource wheel works is that at the beginning of the game you're going to start with 0 glass, 0 sand, up to 4 wood, then you have 0 brick, up to 2 food. Now, if you were to gain resources, say if I played this pit worker card. Now, we remember down at the bottom it says that I could gain 1 sand or 1 clay per pit that I have in my play board. So I have 3 total pits, so if I decided to, I could gain 3 sand. Well, to be able to gain that sand, I would just move up 1, 2, 3. Now, this shows that I should have 3 sand, right? No, because this space is freed up here and this space is freed up here, it'll rotate the dial. So instead of the 3 sand, I've only produced actually 2 sand, but I've also produced a glass. And it works the exact same way down here with the brick. As I would say move up charcoal, I would then be producing brick instead of the actual charcoal.
I found it's easier to keep track of my resources if I purposely leave a charcoal or a food behind on each wheel. And that way I know what I'm going to be gaining instead of accidentally turning the wheel and gaining the wrong thing.
It really took me a while to wrap my mind around how these production boards work because what you end up doing is when you're selecting your specialists at the beginning of the round, you're kind of looking across the buildings and you're thinking, okay, now I want to try to build that, but I'm going to play this card that possibly could give me resources and allow me to build, kind of like the supplier or even the carpenter. But what ends up happening is that you didn't, well, at least I didn't, at the beginning of playing this, calculate that the wheels are going to move. So say, for instance, I play the carpenter. Okay, cool, I'm getting a piece of wood. That's what I needed, was that one piece of wood. That's going to be able to allow me to build this building. No, because now the wheel moved, and instead of the wood, I ended up producing a piece of glass.
In order to build, you not only need the resources to build a building, but you're going to have an empty space on your player board. And you're going to have to play one of these cards that allows you to build a building for your action.
After you play your specialist card that allows you to build, you would go over here to the building board and you would select which building you would want to build. Now, the difference here is we've got blue, we've got yellow, and then we have our browns. The blue ones allow you to utilize this building throughout the game over and over. You really abuse these throughout the game. These yellow ones here, they're just an immediate one-time use. So you do it one time and you're done. So for instance, this one here says for 1 food you would gain 1 wood. Well, okay, but that's just one time. Down here, these are basically victory point buildings you're going to build. And they're either listed up here in the upper right-hand corner. For instance, this village church is worth 4 victory points. Or they're also listed here in the box. So, for instance, this does give you 4 points, but it's also going to give you an additional point for every adjacent space next to the building. So let's say if I wanted to build this swamp hut. Now the swamp hut's going to cost me 2 clay as it's listed over in the left-hand side to build. I would bring it over here to my player board. And then what I'm going to do is I'm either going to put it on any empty space, or if I wanted to, I could even remove any one of these groves, ponds, or pits and place it there. Then I would go over here to my production wheel and I would reduce my clay by 2. Now, because I built the blue building, I could then, if I wanted to, anytime, either on my turn or on even an opponent's turn, I can take this action, which this is saying if I wanted to, I could remove a pond and gain 2 charcoal. So if I wanted to, I could remove this pond from my player board, go over here to my production wheel, and I could move up my charcoal on one of my wheels up 2 spaces, moving the wheel, and then see there, I gained a brick.
At the end of the game, you're going to count up your points on your buildings. First, you're going to look in the upper right-hand corner and just add those points. And then you're also going to have buildings that give you points based on your player board. And then these buildings that everyone has over to the left are going to give you points based on your production wheel.
Well, thanks for watching this episode of Games You Might Not Be Playing.
Bet you should.
Now let's talk about this game some, because I tell you what, this is a game when I first opened it up, I was like, my eyes were lit up. I was like, oh man, look at all this stuff. This is going to be awesome. And we played it, and I'll tell you what, it was very difficult for us to really wrap our minds around this game.
Well, we were really worried about doing a review on this because we stink at it. I mean, we were barely breaking 12 points, and we're like, we can't do a live play. People will think we're stupid.
Yeah, it was really bad. And it happened because of 2 different reasons. Number one, we are not used to playing games with a production wheel like this one has here, okay? In the past, I mean, you gain a wood, yay. But in this one, you gain a wood, now actually you just made it glass. And that's a little bit tough to wrap your mind around when you're first learning this game, you know? The other thing, too, is just the amount and volume of selection in this game. You've got 15 specialist cards. You've got all these buildings to choose from. You ain't got a clue on how any of this stuff is synergizing with one another. And you're just sitting there all this time thinking, I don't know who to select. I don't know who to play. I don't know what to do.
The learning curve, I think, depends a little bit on your personality because Tim got used to it quicker than I did. I tend to have ADD when it comes to anything and trouble focusing and completing a task. And then I tend to have analysis paralysis. And so having all these goals that I have to keep track of in my brain, it just wasn't working for me.
It was rough. And the way that we solved this is, and this is how we're always going to recommend it. Now, what they say in the rule book is take some of the building tiles out. Fine, whatever. It still ain't going to fix what I'm talking about. But I will tell you what does fix it, okay? Number 1, okay? Cultivate. Just worry about cultivating, okay? Do your forest managers, do your pit workers, you know, do your pond builder, you know, do the cultivator, whatever, okay? Do these guys because what they're going to do is help you in the long run collect a bunch of resources.
So that's the first step to focus on.
And this will simplify it. Step 2 would be to just focus on one type of building. Just focus on one building on the board. Don't look at all these buildings. Just look at one building. I'm going to build that building there. And just build your resources up till you purchase that building, and then success, okay? You're not going to probably score a bunch of points your first game, but yet you're starting to get over that learning curve, and you're making progress, and that's the key.
Right. I mean, we score a lot more points now than what we did when we first started playing, and it just comes naturally as you play in the game. You get used to it.
Yeah, we're usually, about 40, 50 points now? Yeah. But you know what? Here's the thing. Now that we've played this enough, we've got about probably 10 to 12 games under our belt. We've learned to appreciate it. These buildings are here, these cards are here because what this has done is it's created high replayability of this game. Now, you know, we've played several games where I've built buildings and I haven't seen it even pop up until maybe like 3 or 4 games later so that I could try to build it again. So you're not using the same strategies every game.
And I found that this is part of the enjoyment of the game is that you're always learning.
Yeah.
And that really adds to it.
Now, if you guys are familiar with our channel and stuff, most of the games we play are just her and I. And a lot of times we will base our opinion on is this a good 2-player game?
Yes.
I'll let you speak. Yes, okay.
Yes,
Why do you
it's a good
feel,
2-player game.
What do you feel makes this such a great 2-player game in your opinion?
I really enjoy the way the card drafting works and that I don't just pay attention to what I'm doing, but I'm going to have to interact with Tim and pay attention to what he's doing. to determine which cards I'm going to pick.
Right, and the two-player game does work a little differently because we're going to play, one player has to run out of cards in their hand for the round to end. So it's a little different. And that's the key, and that's what I actually like that. That's my favorite part of the game too, is the card drafting and which cards I'm going to play and select.
And I actually figured that out pretty early on.
And, I really think that this game offers an awful lot, and depending on if you want to play it, one player all the way up to 4 player, I think that it's given you enough value that it warrants purchase or at least play it and try the game out, because we have seriously fell in love with the game and we enjoyed it an awful lot.